The wood of the courtroom bench was hard beneath me, but I didn't shift. I didn't blink. To my right, my sister, Carla, adjusted her silk scarf. The rustle of the fabric loud in the heavy silence of the probate hearing. She smelled of expensive perfume and unearned confidence. The judge was shuffling through the final stack of documents, his reading glasses perched precariously on the bridge of his nose. That was when she leaned in. The movement was sharp, predatory, her breath was hot. Against my ear, her voice dropping to a hiss that only I could hear. "You were never meant to inherit this," she whispered, her tone dripping with venom. "You're the spare, remember, Dad just felt sorry for you. But don't worry, I'll let you keep the old truck." She pulled back, a smug, tight-lipped smile plastered on her face, checking to see if she had broken me. She wanted a reaction. She wanted me to cause a scene so she could play the grieving, victimized daughter one last time. I remained absolute granite. I stared straight ahead at the great seal of the state hanging behind the judge's dais. My hands were folded calmly in my lap, resting on the folder. I had brought a folder Carla hadn't even noticed because she was too busy calculating the liquidation value of our father's estate. Inside, I was burning. But the fire was cold. I replayed her whisper in my mind. Asterisk, you were never meant to inherit this. Asterisk, she was right, in a way. I wasn't meant to inherit the mess she had created. I wasn't meant to inherit the debt she had racked up in Dad's name while he was bedridden. But she had mistaken my silence for weakness for the last 5 years. She thought because I changed the bedpans and managed the hospice nurses while she vacationed in Cabo that I was soft. The irony was suffocating. Carla had visited Dad exactly 3 times in the last 2 years of his life. Each visit lasted less than an hour and always ended with her asking for a loan that was never repaid. When the cancer moved to his brain, she stopped coming entirely, claiming it was too traumatizing for her to see him like that. I was the one who held his hand when the morphine stopped working. I was the one who listened to his regrets in the middle of the night. And I was the one who sat with his attorney, Mr. Thorne, 3 days before he passed, drafting the document that now sat on the judge's bench. Carla thought we were here for the 2018 will, the one drafted before she drained his savings. She had no idea that the timeline of her greed had been meticulously documented. "Before we proceed with the asset distribution," Judge Reynolds said, his voice booming, "the executor has submitted a supplementary video codicil, authenticated by Mr. Thorne and the attending physician as being made of sound mind." Carla froze, her head snapped toward Mr. Thorne, then to me. "Video? What video?" "There is no video." "Sit down, Ms. Vance," the judge ordered, his tone leaving no room for argument. The bailiff dimmed the lights, a projector screen descended, the room went deathly silent. The image of our father appeared. He looked frail, sitting in his favorite armchair, but his eyes were sharp, sharper than they had been in months. "Carla," his voice crackled through the courtroom speakers. It was weak but steady. "If you are watching this, it means you showed up to the court. You didn't show up to the hospital. You didn't show up for my birthday. But I knew you'd show up for the money." The air left the room. Carla made a noise, a choked gasp, and tried to stand up. "This is fake. He was medicated. He didn't know what he was saying." I said, "Sit down." Judge Reynolds slammed his gavel, the crack echoing like a gunshot. On the screen, Dad continued. "You told me you needed $50,000 for a business loan. I found out you bought a car. You told me you needed help with rent. I found out you went to Europe. You drained the accounts I meant for your brother's education. You think because I was sick. I was blind." The camera zoomed in slightly on his face. "I am leaving the house, the business, and the remaining liquidity to my son, to you, Carla. I leave the outstanding balance of the credit cards you opened in my name. I have already transferred the debt to your estate as per the fraud affidavit signed by the bank this morning." The video cut to black. The lights hummed back on. The silence that followed was heavy, physical. It pressed down on everyone in the room. The court reporter had stopped typing. The bailiff was staring at the floor. Carla looked to the judge, her face pale, her mouth opening and closing like a fish out of water. "Fraud affidavit?" she whispered, the volume gone from her voice. "Mr. Thorne has provided evidence of 22 separate instances of wire fraud and identity theft committed by you against the deceased," the judge said, looking over his spectacles with pure disdain. "The estate is awarded to the plaintiff in full. Furthermore, I am forwarding the transcript of this hearing and the evidence provided to the district attorney's office. You aren't just disinherited, Ms. Vance, you are likely facing indictment." Carla slumped back into the bench. The expensive silk scarf slipped from her shoulder. She looked small. She looked ruined. I stood up. I buttoned my jacket. I didn't look at the judge. I nodded to Mr. Thorne. I gathered my folder, the one containing the receipts, the bank statements, the timeline of every lie she had told Dot as I turned to leave. I stopped right in front of where she was sitting. She was trembling, staring at her hands. I leaned down, bringing my face close to her ear, mirroring the position she had taken just minutes before. You were right, I whispered, my voice calm and cold. I wasn't meant to inherit the money, I was meant to inherit the truth. Enjoy the debt, Carla. I walked out of the double doors and into the bright afternoon sun, leaving the silence behind me.